Q7110. An airport has pilot-controlled lighting, but runways without approach lights. How many times should you key your microphone to turn on the MIRL at medium intensity? A. 5 clicks. B. 3 clicks. C. None. The MIRL is left on all night. The correct answer is A. When dealing with pilot-controlled lighting at an airport without approach lights, the procedure for turning on the Medium Intensity Runway Lights, MIRL, involves a specific number of keying microphone clicks. In this scenario, to activate the MIRL at medium intensity, the correct procedure is to key your microphone 5 times. Each keying of the microphone is equivalent to a click. The purpose of pilot-controlled lighting is to give pilots the ability to control the lighting system based on their needs. By keying the microphone a specific number of times, pilots can signal their desired lighting settings to the airfield lighting control system. In the case of turning on the MIRL at medium intensity, the 5 microphone clicks indicate the desired lighting level. This activates the MIRL system, illuminating the runway lights at a medium intensity suitable for aircraft operations during low-light conditions or at night. It's important to follow the prescribed procedure for keying the microphone to ensure that the MIRL is activated correctly and provides adequate lighting for safe operations at the airport. Q7113. The numbers 8 and 26 on the approach ends of the runway indicate that the runway is orientated approximately. A. 008 degree and 026 degree true. B. 080 degree and 260 degree true. C. 080 degree and 260 degree magnetic. The correct answer is C. The numbers painted at the approach ends of a runway serve as visual indicators of the runway's orientation. They are usually depicted using large, white numbers to facilitate identification by pilots. In this case, the numbers 8 and 26 are provided to indicate the orientation of the runway. Here is a more detailed explanation. The number 8. This indicates the runway's approximate heading or orientation in degrees. In aviation, runway headings are expressed using 3 digits, which represent the magnetic direction that the runway points towards. In this case, the number 8 suggests that the runway is oriented approximately towards 080 degrees. The number 26, similarly, this number represents the approximate heading of the opposite end of the runway. In this case, the number 26 indicates that the opposite end of the runway is oriented approximately towards 260 degrees. It's important to note that runway headings are typically given in magnetic direction, which means they are referenced to the Earth's magnetic north. This allows pilots to align their navigation instruments and properly adjust for magnetic variations when navigating the runway. Q7114. What does a series of arrows painted on the approach end of a runway signify? A. That area is restricted solely to taxi operations. B. That portion of the runway is not suitable for landing. C. That portion of the runway is the designated touchdown zone. The correct answer is B. When a series of arrows is painted on the approach end of a runway, it serves as a visual indication to pilots regarding the suitability of that particular portion of the runway for landing. Here are more details about the significance of these arrows. The purpose of the arrows. The arrows painted on the runway are used to mark specific areas and convey important information to pilots during landing operations. They are typically designed to provide visual cues and guidance for safe and effective landings. Series of arrows. When a series of arrows is painted on the approach end of a runway, it indicates that the corresponding portion of the runway is not suitable for landing. These arrows can be depicted in various forms, such as chevrons or diagonal lines, to clearly indicate that pilots should avoid landing in that specific area, signifying unsuitability for landing. The presence of these arrows indicates that the section of the runway marked by the arrows may pose potential hazards or limitations for landing aircraft. This could be due to factors such as runway conditions, obstructions, or other safety considerations. Therefore, pilots should be aware that landing on the portion of the runway marked by the arrows is not recommended. By marking this section as unsuitable for landing, pilots are alerted to avoid using that specific area and instead focus on landing on the remaining portion of the runway that is safe for landing operations. This helps ensure the safety and efficiency of landings by guiding pilots to the appropriate touchdown zone. A series of arrows painted on the approach end of a runway signifies that the corresponding portion of the runway is not suitable for landing. 7115. When approaching taxiway holding lines from the side with the continuous lines, the pilot A. may continue taxiing. B. should not cross the lines without ATC clearance. C. should continue taxiing until all parts of the aircraft have crossed the lines. The correct answer is B. When a pilot is approaching taxiway holding lines from the side with continuous lines, it is important to understand the significance of these markings and the appropriate actions to take. Here are more details regarding this scenario. Taxiway holding lines. Taxiway holding lines are painted markings on the taxiway pavement that indicate areas where aircraft should stop and await further instructions or clearance from ATC. They are typically depicted as solid continuous lines across the taxiway width. Continuous lines. When the pilot is approaching taxiway holding lines and sees continuous lines, it indicates that they are approaching a point where they should not proceed further without proper authorization or clearance from ATC. The continuous lines act as a visual boundary, signaling that the pilot must come to a stop and await instructions before crossing. ATC clearance. The correct action for the pilot in this situation is to not cross the lines without ATC clearance. This means that the pilot should come to a complete stop at the holding lines and communicate with ATC to receive permission or instructions to proceed. Safety and compliance. Adhering to taxiway holding lines and obtaining ATC clearance before crossing is crucial for safety and efficient movement of aircraft on the ground. It helps prevent potential conflicts with other aircraft, vehicles, or runway operations. When approaching taxiway holding lines from the side with continuous lines, the pilot should not cross the lines without ATC clearance. It is important to prioritize compliance with instructions from ATC to ensure safe taxiing operations. 7231. What is the purpose of the runway hold position sign? A. Denotes entrance to runway from a taxiway. B. Denotes area protected for an aircraft approaching or departing a runway. C. Denotes taxiway location. The correct answer is A. The runway hold position sign plays an important role in providing clear guidance and information to pilots and ground personnel at an airport. Here are more details regarding the purpose of the runway hold position sign. Location indication. The runway hold position sign is typically located at the intersection where a taxiway meets a runway. It is specifically positioned to denote the entrance or access point from the taxiway to the runway. Visual identification. The sign itself consists of a yellow background with black inscription. It is designed to be easily visible and recognizable to pilots and ground personnel, even in low-light conditions or adverse weather. Entrances and boundaries. The primary purpose of the runway hold position sign is to clearly indicate the boundary or point at which an aircraft must stop and hold before entering the runway. It serves as a visual reminder to pilots that they must come to a complete stop at that location and await further instructions or clearance before proceeding onto the runway. Safety and prevention. The presence of the runway hold position sign helps prevent runway incursions and ensures that aircraft do not inadvertently cross onto an active runway without proper authorization. By clearly marking the entrance to the runway from a taxiway, it helps maintain the separation of aircraft and promotes safe operations on the ground. The purpose of the runway hold position sign is to denote the entrance to a runway from a taxiway. It serves as a visual indication to pilots that they must stop at that point and await further instructions or clearance before entering the runway.